KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.
What a game! What a game!
Get off my lawn.
Get Off My Lawn is back with Jim Schutze and
Eric Celeste.
Great to be here. And lots to talk about. This is the show where we talk about what's really happening in the city and try to get behind the lines and behind the curtain a little bit and look at that little man in the room that we're supposed to ignore.
Or woman.
Yeah, oh, yes, absolutely. And I'm sorry, Eric, you make a good point. This has been quite a week.
It has. I've basically just been logging on to your site over at Unfair Park and reading what you've had to say about it. Lots of great DISD blogs this week.
Yeah, and certainly not everybody agrees with what I have to say about it, but there's been a lot of action, and it's hard to it's a hard thing to ignore no matter what side of the issue you're on. Let me construct something so you can deconstruct it.
Okay.
So at the end of this week, Mike Miles, after our superintendent of schools, Mike Miles, came here a year ago from a suburban district in Colorado Springs. I don't quite get Colorado Springs, Colorado. Apparently it has multiple school districts, but he was superintendent of one of them. So he came here, a much smaller district, and launched this aggressive campaign of school reform. They're pushing out a bunch of principals, and a lot of teachers have left. It's a tough campaign. He's also been running a special academy to train his own cadre of school principals to replace the ones that he's getting rid of. Commissioner John Wiley Price, Dallas County Commissioner John Wiley Price, has railed and campaigned against him. Said he's a small town dude who wasn't up to the job and is never going to make it in Dallas and needs to get out of here.
10,000 students where he came from in the school district, 157,000 in right. DISD for comparison. And
there's been a narrative in the media, in the morning news, and the morning news has been, I guess, even-handed, but there's still this narrative there that the guy just isn't up to the task. So at the end of the week, I'm thinking about it.
Right.
He had this big battle earlier over getting rid of the principals that he wanted moved out.
Right.
He won.
Yes.
He's now had this second huge battle over the budget.
Right.
He won.
Right.
He's still got his academy going, so yes. He's won that battle. I'm just looking back. What has he not been up to?
Well, because people want that, they have this enormous ecosystem of DISD, right? That is the Shark Tank.
$1.5 billion budget.
Right.
Yeah.
157,000 kids. Trying to please board members, trying to please the media, trying to please parents, trying to please administrators and teachers and everybody else. And real estate people, because the prices are tied to the quality of
right.
the schools and everything else. And everybody, they want this district to improve. Mm-hmm. They want to have better scores. They want to feel good about sending their kids there. And that needs systemic change, top to bottom. And we want to bring in a change agent to do it.
Yeah, and we can take the pain. We know it's going to be tough. Yeah.
We know it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Less testing, more innovative ideas. We need to do, and then it starts to happen, and it's messy, and people quit, and people yell at each other, and whoa!
Yeah.
No one said this was going to be ugly. That's generally the feeling I get, that people,
and if it's ugly, let's not do it.
Let's not do it. We need, especially at the morning news, you get a lot of, now, children, sit down. This is, this yelling, this passion.
Who injected passion into this?
Right. So I just sort of go, I look at you and go, right, at the end of the day, scoreboard. Let's look at the scoreboard. He's done a lot of the things he said he's going to do. Now, that's going to anger a lot of people out there because a lot of people don't like him. And a lot of teachers don't like what he's doing. And a lot of administrators don't like
very
what he's doing.
Focused groups of people who don't like him.
Right. And by the way, they have a lot of good points. He has screwed up in a lot of ways. He came in arrogant. He didn't listen to people who knew where the bodies were buried. He brought in outside people, and no matter how, nothing but outside people. He didn't come in and sort of, this is what happens with change agents, right?
Yeah.
They come in and they say, well, I'm here because you suck. Therefore, I don't have to listen to anything you say, any of you.
Yeah.
If you survive, you're lucky. I'm going to bring in all my people, and then we're going to go to the outside experts and bring some of them in.
Right.
The problem is, like you said, and like John Wiley has said, and he's right about this, when you come from Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
And I was there over Thanksgiving. It was a beautiful town.
What is it?
It's a military town in a beautiful, picturesque area of Colorado, and we ran a race. I walked a race, and my girlfriend ran a race there on Thanksgiving. It's beautiful. It's a picturesque little place. I could see retiring there. It is not, by any stretch, DISD, Dallas. It is not. It does not have those issues. So he's right about that. And he came in, and he put in a bunch of outsiders, and that's probably really smart people, probably really intent on doing well. But I don't care how much you train in your pool. If you get thrown into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, you're not ready for the temperature of the water.
Well, although, is it a good thing to get Dallas? I mean, maybe there's an advantage to not getting it. Whenever I try to explain Dallas to people elsewhere, I can see the eyelids come down about halfway through, and I can see them brain ticking, and they're thinking, what is this guy? Is he a racist, or is he a...
Well, sure, having that, you've got to maintain through all of what's going to come at you.
Yeah.
You've got to maintain your focus in doing the things you think are right to change. But that doesn't mean you can ignore the political realities of the situation you walked into.
Which he didn't get. I think who could? I mean, this is a guy who's black and has lived his life as a person of color and a minority. And he comes into Dallas, and black people tell him he's white.
Right.
And there's your first wake-up call.
Right.
And then he's got to figure out why in the world the business community that brought him here, and we say business community, that's a stupid thing to say. There's more, that's a diverse entity, a diverse leadership. But some of the old guard people who he assumed would be behind him are calling him up saying, hey, this is not how we do things here. You don't want to get crossways with Brother Price.
Right. And that's what I mean. Knowing where you can step out, what you can say, what you need to say when you go into the Dallas, the first time he went to the Dallas Morning News editorial board, and he lectured them because he knows what he's doing, right? What did they write? How arrogant he is.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You go in a little bit on bended knee. It's just part of the game. Yeah. And you have yourself a little policy discussion and let everybody there sort of think, I know a little bit more than this guy. I feel good about that, and I'll write that.
You are supposed to know to burn a little incense at the editorial board meeting and sacrifice a cat or something.
Right. And those are just sort of basic things that he screwed up in the first year. Now, that doesn't even get to the controversial programs that he wants to put in place, which were going to cause weeping and wailing, probably maybe sometimes for legitimate reasons, maybe not, or the fact that you still got a district to run day to day.
Well, but talk about controversial programs. One of them is this thing, Imagine 2020, where you got these 3 high schools, Madison, Pinkston, and Lincoln, that are horrendously off the charts in terms of what they're able to teach the kids and what they've done over the years. So they want to pump $20 million into these 3 schools. Most of the money is coming from SMU and outside. The district share is $8.8 million. And so the school board member, Bernadette Nuttall, who represents 2 of those schools, maybe it's all 3, but 2 of them, she fights him on it, tries to get the thing kiboshed, votes against it because she says you'll be coming in here and experimenting with our kids. Yeah. $20 million experiment to see if you can teach these kids, prepare them for decent lives. How could the school board member who represents that district vote against a program like that's aimed directly at her own kids?
I don't know, and it speaks to the desire for control, right, in these issues.
So her control, is more important than the fate of those children.
Yeah, I mean, if that was her idea, she'd be for it.
Yeah.
That's and these are the cracks in that last.
If she could run it, and if she could provide the list of subcontractors,
right? And that last meeting, you saw the cracks in the school board, right? All year, people were writing about Miles and how much he was screwing up. Well, what you were hearing and I was hearing, and other people who pay attention and talk to the administrators, the second level folks who really know what's going on. They knew that these people in the board and Miles' cabinet who were leaving were getting immense pressure from the board because they decided they were going to step into this power vacuum.
Right.
A power vacuum created by Miles' own ineptitude and in terms of dealing with the media and dealing with the politics of this situation. And they just said, look, I didn't sign up for this. I don't need this.
Yeah.
I didn't sign up to work for the board. I signed up to work for Miles and
right.
and I don't begrudge them that.
We got 2 callers, one of whom called just as we came on the air, so I'm wondering if this is going to be the not all call. But that's line 2. Corey, are you there? Corey, you still here?
Yeah, I'm not all call.
Okay. What's up?
Look, this is my thing. I'm a product of DISD, okay?
Right.
I went back in the day, I went there when they had 2 different administrators. And then I've seen part of the Henny Hoster deal with my siblings.
Right.
Okay, the issue that I have with the ISD is 2 things. Number one, when the kids are acting up in school and in class, they need to kick them out. Other school districts do it, and those other school districts flourish.
Mm-hmm.
They need to kick them out, send them to an alternative program. And a lot of the things that they don't want to do on the south side of town, which is where I went to school, they don't want those kids kicked out of school, because a lot of those kids are star athletes, okay? The second issue is all of the money that comes up missing at the end of the year with the school board and how they got, and the superintendents and how they got all this money and they're over this big budget. There was no way that they should have been losing between $60 and $80 million with Henny Hoster. I mean, the feds should have been stepping in looking at this guy, and a bunch of people should have been going to jail.
Corey, let me make 2 points. I thank you very much for calling, and we're coming up on a break. One is, I don't know, there's a lot of research that says that the minute you push kids off into the alternative school channel, you're sort of criminalizing their behavior. Man, the rest of their career is downhill. So you're sort of kissing them off as soon as you do that. Corey makes a good point. What do you do about discipline? What do you do about disruptive kids? But I don't blame the school for wanting to save some of those kids who come in acting bad because that's how they act. The other thing about the money, that whole thing of missing money turned out to be a horrendous miscalculation by this guy, Alan King, who's now a big critic of Miles. But he was the financial guy. He got it wrong by $60 million. Anyway.
I think that he hit on a good point, though. Like, discipline is one of a dozen issues that are extremely complicated when it comes to education. You have it as a parent. My child went all the way through DISD. As a parent, I can say, Jim, I agree with you. That sort of research says we shouldn't isolate them. A kid messes with my daughter, I want him out of school.
Yeah, no kidding.
And
no
so
kidding.
I get that is tough, and it's just one of the many things that don't have a clear-cut answer.
We got Tony on line 3. Tony, are you still there?
Good morning. How you doing?
Good. What's up?
All right. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, Dallas Morning News had an article on a school by the Marsh Lane area. I think it's Withers or whatever.
Yeah.
And the parents, I think it closed about 4 or 5 years ago. The parents opened it back up. It was white, middle class, upper class, and they convinced the community, the white community, to go back into the school. And the school has been recognized. But it's like 70% Spanish.
Right.
You know, they do dual language.
Yeah.
Now the whole article talks about the parents' participation, but you never saw a Hispanic person in the article.
Yeah.
Being reported. But what you saw was, and this is where I get to the issue of Dallas and across the country. There are certain white communities who are struggling right now to make ends meet. And when I say that, I'm saying it facetiously. Their money is being eroded by the economy.
Yeah.
They can't afford to put their kids back in private school.
Right. So
and the article says this. You know, most of those people had their kids in private schools around that area.
Yeah.
And I think that the thing is, you hear corporations make this argument, you know, to get good people to come down here to Dallas to work when you good school systems.
Yeah.
And the argument is that if you have a good school system, which they can put their kids in where they don't have to pay, which gives them more income at home.
Right.
And so to me, this argument, like you said, $20 million to Madison, Lincoln.
Right.
My thing is this: you can throw $20 million to any school, but if I don't go to school and I'm hungry, I got beat last night, I'm not going to pass the test. I don't care how you put the money there. And it's been proven. You can put all the money in school districts, and it really doesn't make that much effect.
So don't give the money to those schools?
No, I'm not saying don't give it to you. I'm saying this: we have known in this city that you can throw money at school systems. And look at Miles' staff, 6-figure incomes.
Let me hang on, Tony. I see Eric over here bouncing up and down.
Well, I think you hit on a great point, which is that, like Jim's saying, if these people want to give $20 million, please, let's try it. Your point is also understand what they're giving, the system they're giving to. 89% of DISD students are on free or reduced lunch.
True.
89%. That's higher than Houston. All right, it's one of the highest in the country. And what is the greatest indicator of success for students in schools? It's economic stability. So it is more complicated than throwing money at it, and there should be skepticism. I think, like in that case, you're sort of saying, though, these people want to give it. It's not coming out of the public's dime. Let's try it. But it's just another example of how just throwing money doesn't help. Parental involvement is important, and then the dynamics of that parental involvement are really interesting. And
we're about to go to a break, but I want to, Tony, thank you. I want to point out that this, anyway, I guess I got to wait to point it out until we'll be back after a minute.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.
When they're gone for good. This is Scott from KNON's Texas Blues Radio telling you don't miss out on some great blues. KNON's Texas Blues Radio Volume 5 Blues CD. It's a CD put together by real blues fans for real blues fans like you. Texas Blues Radio Volume 5 features great local blues from Michael J. and the Paul Bird Band, JJ and the Detonators, the Chris Watson Band, the Two Tones, Rough Cut Blues Band, Jeff Stone with Charlie Love, Dave Millsap, Sirloin and the Ass Kicking Machine, Tutu Jones, Blues Boy Bo, Buddy Whittington, Andrea Dawson, Kirkland James, Sonny Colley, and Johnny Red and the Roosters. Get a copy now at Forever Young Records in Grand Prairie, Recordtown in Fort Worth, and in Dallas at Bill's Records. This is a Dallas Blues collector's item. A very limited amount of vinyl copies can be found at Forever Young Records, the sponsor of this great blues project. CD downloads are available at cdbaby.com. Whether you get it as a download, on vinyl, or on CD, all the proceeds will benefit KNON. For more info on Texas Blues Radio Volume 5, visit knon.org.
Jim Schutze and Eric Celeste back with Get Off My Lawn, and we've been talking about Mike Miles in the school district and the $20 million program called Imagine 2020 that Bernadette Nuttall voted against for Madison, Lincoln, and Pinkston high schools. It passed anyway. It's based on a pattern after a thing called the Harlem Children's Zone, where they go in and do this really profound, and I'm trying to avoid using the word holistic because I hate that word,
right.
But it's what it is. They go into the whole neighborhood around the schools, and they try to create a safe, nurturing zone for schools, and that has a lot to do with the school, but it also has to do with law enforcement, code enforcement, everything. And so they are and feeding the kids too. So they're going after the things that our caller Tony brought up, that you got to have some cognizance of the fact that some of these kids are coming from really tough places.
And every neighborhood and area is different in terms of what works, right? I mean, and that gets to the economic stability of the neighborhood, the culture of the people there, and the racial makeup of the folks there, and the all of the parents working two jobs, and therefore how it's hard. When my ex-wife and I, we both worked days, and we would come home every day and ask our daughter, who went to DISD, about things that would happen. And she would talk about all these parents who were there every day, helping and giving back to the school. And we're trying to make mortgage, you know?
Yeah.
So God bless those folks, but those things have something to do with it. I remember touring Peak Academy over here in East Dallas with Rosemary Perlmeter, who's a great education advocate, and just being astounded at what they were able to do with it was a charter school, and with low-income students from the neighborhood, and the success they had. But that was it was a thoughtful, entire, holistic-ish.
Absolutely, they know what they're doing. I went there once, and they always want you to meet the students. So you're walking down the hall and you meet the students, and these little kids would come up, stick their hands out, and look me in the eye and say hello, and they'd give me their name, and we'd have a little chat. So I'm used to the kids kind of around my son's friends, who he was in high school, in another DISD high school at that time, and I said to the person taking me through, why are these kids looking me in the eye like adults and shaking my hand? And she said, we teach them that. We teach them that. We know that's important for them to own their space and to present themselves.
Exactly. The problem comes, I think, because I come back from that going, and I go to my friends in DISD and people who work there and say, why can't you do this? And they say, they can kick them out if they don't.
Yeah.
We take ownership of every kid who comes through that door. Again, 89% of whom are on free lunch. So, and the broken home situations, kids who come into class with their gums bleeding, they don't have the option of saying straighten up and fly right, or you're out of here.
Yeah. So
I think, again, it gets to the complexity of the issue.
My son came home from Woodrow once, and he said, this girl in my such and such class has had a seizure for the third time in class, and he got to know her a little, and it turned out She was just from a background where she didn't get to see the doctor. She didn't get any medicine. She didn't get anything.
Right.
And so she was having these untreated seizures in class, and that was her tough luck. That's part of what she had to put up with to go to school.
Right.
So there are those very, very tough cases. We got a DISD employee on line 1. It says DISD employee. It could be the name. Is your name Disney, or are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Yes. Is that right? You're a DISD employee?
Yes, I am.
What's up, DISD employee?
Well, and all the situation with the deal, I understand what Mr. Miles is doing, but in the same token, he is forgetting about his employees. He's leading by intimidation. He's hiring folks and making us feel like that if we don't keep our mouth shut and do exactly what we're told, that we're going to be losing our job and they're going to outsource everything. And we have teachers in the classrooms that they're not standing behind, because I'm in the classrooms every day, and if we see a kid that's doing something wrong, we're not allowed to do anything about it, and people up above us are not doing anything about it. So, the kids have no fear of any kind of retaliation or anything, so they don't care.
Okay.
So
well, I appreciate your calling. We're having a little audio trouble, but it's a good point. What do you think, Eric?
Well, yeah. I mean, again, it gets to the problem, right? How complicated this is. I think I've heard. I want to believe, and I'm sure Miles wants to feel like, hey, there's problems in DISD. I can't listen to people complain. I got to make my evaluation, be a change agent, get new people in here, change the culture. The real world doesn't really work that way. There's good people doing great work a lot of times in DISD, stuff we don't hear about often. And that I hear about from administrators who go, why aren't they covering what they're doing?
Yeah.
Those people are getting swept up in it. And I want to believe that the people who complain about Miles are just whiners and don't want to change. But then I end up talking to, I'll assume this person is a great teacher, but I run into people who I know are very smart, very dedicated, work hard in the system. And they voice those same concerns. But it makes it hard for me.
Okay.
It makes it hard for me to...
How often is it, if you trace those stories back, it's not Mike Miles personally who's going to the school with the whip.
No.
It's a lot of those cases, and I have friends who are teachers, smart people, and I'm getting the same thing. But when you trace the story back, they're getting all of this filtered down by a dumb principal. Right. They got a principal who's dumb, who's worried about the job, and says, I'm doing this because of Mike Miles. And so they blame it on Miles.
I absolutely can't argue with that. I was very lucky. We had 3 schools that my daughter went to with fantastic principals, and I know that made all the difference. And you knew the ones that didn't. And by the way, that's why I went and paid money for houses I couldn't afford, and we had to work 2 jobs, was to be at the school where the good principal was. And
that's what makes all the difference. I'm a bleeding heart. I hate it when people get fired. However, you and I are both from the media business. My experience is that, I've worked at a lot of different kinds of newspapers. The good ones fire people.
Yeah.
I hate it. I don't want to see them get fired. But and the ones that never fire people tend to be moribund. They tend not to get the job done. I saw somebody recently, maybe it was a commenter, who was saying that the Mike Miles's policy on which principals they were going to get rid of wasn't transparent. And I thought, well, yeah, they need transparency. And then I thought, wait a minute, what personnel policy on who you're going to get rid of is ever transparent?
Yeah, I never had a problem with the idea that we got to get rid of principals and start there and put in some new ones. It was how he handled it. He handled it really poorly, and it came across, again, this is that political environment he didn't navigate very well. It came across as he's going to fire 50 principals. And again, as you pointed out in your columns, everyone's for change, and but until it affects my school and the person I know down the street.
I don't know if there's a great way to handle I don't believe there's a way to handle this level of change without a lot of pain and howling, and it's not people whining. I mean, we're talking about people's livelihoods.
Yeah,
This is serious business.
That's fair.
I realize that, but how do you achieve this kind of change without some pain? We got Michael and on line 2, and it says, not the one you know. Don't be so sure, Michael. I might know more about you than you think. Or line 2. Michael, are you still there?
Yeah, how you doing?
Good.
Yeah, man, the Dallas Observer is a good newspaper, ain't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, it's time for them to fire you then.
Okay.
You
Well, that may well be. Look,
You said good newspaper fire people, so you still there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I want to change the subject if
Well,
you
I
don't
want
mind.
to talk about this guy, that guy that's with you. He harking on 89% of the ISD students is on free lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Eric Celeste.
So, I mean, how in the hell do they eat dinner then?
I don't know. That's part of the problem.
Well, okay, take some of that $1 million and put some dinner there. I mean, if they eat free breakfast, that lie didn't work because how long free breakfast been in the public schools? 20 years, and they still failing. So the student need a full stomach so they can learn. So that lie didn't work. So they changed the uniforms where all the students got the same clothes on. So that lie ain't work.
Michael, what would work? You tell me what would work.
Asking some of them students what they want to learn, what would keep them in school to finish.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody don't want to be a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them kids might just want to go to school to learn how to read and write and count money whenever they get a job. Some of them might just want to go to school and learn how to do body work. Some of them don't care about the other side of the planet.
A whole lot of what this whole thing that Miles has pushed is what he calls engagement, and Michael, they're going into the classrooms and they're watching the teacher teach, and they want to see if those kids are looking at the teacher, listening, and they're telling the teachers, you got to do that. You got to find a way to get these kids to listen to you and to be interested. So what's wrong with that?
There ain't nothing wrong with that, but can you make a kid learn? You can bit more make a kid learn like you can make a 15 or 20-year homeless person wake up one morning and go get a damn job.
Well, I think you're wrong about both those things. I think that you can make you can excite a kid into and realizing their ability to do things they never thought possible.
You can make a kid learn. You can't make nobody do nothing.
The other thing is, and I take offense to your idea about the homeless, because I see through my girlfriend's program that she's in
I like your
the
wife.
running with
Your
the
wife, she divorced your ass.
running with the homeless every day in the Back of My Feet program, and seeing people transition from homeless to homes every day because they believe in them. Because they believe in them, just like teachers who are good believe in their students. Instead of walking in and assuming those kids can't learn. If there are teachers, and if there are parents like you, that's part of the problem.
You part of the problem.
Michael, thank you.
You were born.
Get off my lawn.
There are 1,000 arguments why it can't be done, why you can't do it. Give up. That is what I hear in this mentality, and I'm not saying anybody's doing it deliberately, but the big voice that comes back. If you're Mike Miles sitting in your office, you're hearing 1,000 reasons why you can't do anything.
Yeah, and I talked to someone this week who said, if you sat in on the board meetings this week, the cabinet meetings or whatever, and if you went and listened to him talk at schools, and he has changed a little bit. He has sobered himself to the realities of what he's up against, but what he has not done is lost his focus that these drastic changes are necessary if there's going to be any sort of progress. And he's right about that. I might disagree with what he's choosing to do, and I do think that he's kind of focused on, like, engagement's one. He's got his new principles as another. I think there are other things that we're working that he's not focusing on. Mm-hmm. And there are people in pockets of DISD who are seeing results, who feel like now they're being ignored because he's got this focus. I get that. And I get that they need to fight to get his attention, that those sort of organic, smaller programs are working and need money and funding and lights shined on them. But that doesn't mean what he's doing is the wrong thing.
I just, and I feel like, there's this research that talks about the cradle to prison pipeline, otherwise known as DISD, where you're producing these kids who cannot read or write. And when they drop out of school, it's a year before they wind up in prison. Now they're illiterate, they can't add or subtract, and they're ex-cons. And their lives, before their lives even start, their lives are broken. And that is a horrendous crisis. And that's what I see Miles focused on. And it seems to me appropriate that you'd have almost a war footing in going after that and saying, we got to really roll into here. We've got to invade Normandy and change this. And some days, I know a lot of the criticisms are legitimate, but it's almost like people were when Eisenhower invaded Normandy, they're saying, well, you're having a lot of traffic accidents on the road, and these jeeps are running into the tanks, and
right.
and there have been some people misassigned.
And your men are sleeping with all the prostitutes.
That's right, yeah, and so call it off. Right. There's something about priorities here, and
yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think that that doesn't mean that they're. I think part of the problem, part of the reason that I do think the perception of it as a war is really out there, and I do think that's a little unfair. When you walk into, I remember first day my daughter went to Long. And and you know that school well. It's
sure.
A feeder into Woodrow.
Yeah.
And some of the parents, and let me be clear, white parents, whose kids were coming out of the elementary feeders would go, oh, Long, I don't know about Long. I hear things. And you start to get this perception that, and you go walk the halls and it's just kids and students.
Right.
And so I think that doesn't mean there aren't problem schools, and that doesn't mean we shouldn't take this seriously. But I think sometimes that gets the passion gets ratcheted up because the dialogue is all about that negative and not about the positive. And that's a pet thing I have also. Maybe we can talk about it in the next segment with the morning news and how they cover education and how they add to what I think is that froth. Yeah,
if you have a special ed kid, people move out of the suburbs back into the city so they can get the kid into DISD because that's where the resources are. There are a lot of things about the school system that are very powerful and effective. That's certainly true, and
that doesn't mean that it's not a huge battle. You're right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I still can't get over Nuttall voting against that stuff for our own students. Anyway, there's the sad music that means that Eric and I have to leave for a minute. But we promise we'll be back with the last segment of Get Off My Lawn.
If it's time to get rid of your old gas guzzler, the Knon Vehicle Donation Program can help. There's still a market for those old vehicles, and if you donate it, you're helping to support quality programming here on KNON. Just call 877-KNON-AUTO or go online to knon.org. We'll take care of everything from pickup to tax paperwork. That's 877-KNON-AUTO or online at knon.org.
KNON is pleased to announce the release of Aaron Burton's latest CD, The Return of Petey Whitestraw, this Sunday, June 30th, upstairs at the Tavern on Main Street in Richardson. Doors open at 4 p.m. and the music begins at 5. Aaron will be doing both a solo acoustic set and then later a full band set. His guest will be the Jason Cloud Band. Included in the ticket price is a barbecue dinner provided by award-winning competition cookers, the Pirates of the Prime Band of Richardson, Texas. Sound and lighting courtesy of DJ Sound and Lighting of Dallas. Big Texas Blues hostess Blue Lisa will be your MC. Seating to this event is limited, so get your tickets now at knon.org or stop in at the Tavern on Main Street, located at 115 East Main Street in Richardson. There's plenty of parking behind the Tavern on Main Street. That's Aaron Burton's CD release party with the Jason Cloud Band and award-winning barbecue from the Pirates of the Primer Being competition cooking team this Sunday, June 30th at the Tavern on Main Street in Richardson. This is a KNON benefit event.
Hey, babes, take one.
Jim Schutze, Eric Celeste, back with the last segment of Get Off My Lawn. We've been talking about DISD. Eric, let me tell you a little story I heard this week. It's just interesting.
Okay. I'm all ears.
Okay. At Lincoln, there was a principal there named Swan. She's no longer there. She was very popular with the community. The community was really, really mad at Miles for causing her to leave. Well, and I say causing, I don't know the real story. I think she negotiated a retirement. She may have wanted to leave. I don't know what happened there, but she's gone, and the community's really mad at Miles. So they went through this huge process to select the new principal. I talked to a woman who was involved in all that. Can't say who she was, but they go through this rigorous vetting process where they all these people have to apply. They present resumes. Apparently, a ton of people wanted the job. It's a big school, you know, and they check the people out. Then they put them through a big interview process where I don't know exactly how it works, but I have the picture of a panel of people firing questions at these candidates.
Right.
And they put them through all of that. Finally, they get this one person they've chosen. And the community had said, we want a man for discipline reasons. Mm-hmm. So they pick a woman. And I think she's young, apparently.
Right.
She is African American. And they get to the end of the process, and they got to present her to a community group.
Oh, boy.
And the community group comes in, and in the crowd is Juanita Wallace of the NAACP, who's been a harsh critic of Miles. A young guy ran against Nuttall. His name may be Ovard. I'm not. I should know it better. But anyway, a bunch of people from the community, and the person telling me this story said that they were they had their guns loaded. They were ready to let DISD have it for foisting off this person on them as their new principal at Lincoln. The woman who got the nod stands up, makes her presentation, answers questions. They give her a standing ovation at the end.
Right.
And they can't believe their luck in how great she seems or she looks. So it's one little thread in the wind. I'm also being told that the graduation rates are going to be up this year. What if people like the new principals and the results and the performance gets better? What if he starts to succeed in what he's doing? What?
Yeah, I mean, he will. That's, he's got to rebuild his public perception, and that's the only way it's going to happen now. I do think, we were just talking about this with teachers, it's the same with administrators. It's especially true of principals who are sort of the CEO rock star of their own school,
Yeah.
right? You can have an idea of what you think you need and your student needs. If they are compelling and smart and you buy into their vision, you'll give them a shot, right? It's the same thing with a teacher. No matter what subject they teach, some of them are just great at it. And if he can go find those people and put them in place where they are not, because it's probably like any job, right? If the principal's not on board with the people running things down on Ross, it's going to filter down, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be disillusion and grumbling, and then that's going to carry on to the students. I think that's true in any business. So if he can get his people in place, and that's the proof in the pudding. If they're great, and they do, and they start to turn things around, then he will, I think, very quickly buy himself the political capital he needs to continue. But it's got to happen this year, I think.
Yeah. There's got to be,
right?
yeah, it's got to start working out. But I mean, what if parents start seeing that their kids are actually doing better and more engaged? Then I think that changes. Then there's a groundswell for them.
And what happens to their support of the people they've used to harass and berate Miles, their board members?
Yeah.
I mean, do they start to, or does that just, are they just being conveniently used to voice those concerns now? And if it turns around, great.
Maybe.
If it doesn't, we're going to get even louder.
If I have my one little concern about this does have to do with the fact that my mother was a teacher, and my impression of that, and I think she was one of those really talented teachers we talk about. But having been around teachers, I think there's something a little insurrectionary and maverick in all good teachers. My mother used to hide kids. She was teaching. This was in Michigan in the 60s, and there was a lot of pressure to put kids in special ed, and it had a big racism component. Any kid who talked back or was trouble, the special ed was like an alternative school, and so she used to hide kids from the special ed monitors,
right.
And she'd call up the parents and say, tomorrow's not a good day for Billy to come to school.
And isn't it hard to take your experience, if you haven't been in that school system and in that Shark Tank, and make it applicable? I mean, there's journalists I'm a journalist, right? I cover the food beat or fashion. Well, you don't cover Syria. That's a different thing.
Yeah, right.
And I know I won't. There's someone I know who's a teacher, a retired teacher, and complains a lot about DISD. Yeah. I'm sure she was a fantastic teacher, and she was, but she just didn't have to go through the things that the teachers in DISD go through.
Yeah.
So.
I'm just thinking that my one worry about Miles maybe and what's going on, I think that it takes huge discipline to bring about this kind of change. But in the end, it really won't work to expect teachers to be a bunch of little soldiers.
No. It's easy to do a story. Look, it's easy. You could write tomorrow, you could go find 50 disgruntled teachers and write a story about how, and basically extrapolate and say the entire district is against Miles and he has to go.
Yeah.
And that's part of what makes them independent and interesting and that job, so attractive to really smart people, even though it has so many other problems.
Yeah, and when I remember the teachers that my kid was most engaged by when he was in DISD, it was kind of all the troublemakers. They were smart troublemakers.
Right.
They had various reasons for having become teachers. They happened to be good at it, but they were a little insurrectionary.
Right. And they would kind of hint at how listen to me, not the administrators' kids.
Yeah.
And you loved them for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Those were the ones the kids just certain kids.
I'd like to ask you about what I mentioned earlier, which is, what do you think? The morning news is the big dog here in terms of setting perception for the district. Even though at the end of the board meeting the other day, Eric Cowan made a plea for civility, and he mentioned your column.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he mentioned.
He said, "Don't be like."
No, he said, I read the piece in the Observer this week, and even though I didn't agree with everything, we need to take it to heart about basically saying we need to stop the fighting. And even though that wasn't mentioned in the morning news story that he cited the Observer, which I thought was interesting. It still is the paper that sets the tone for and the agenda for how we view the district.
The news is, yes.
The news is.
Yeah.
And, Matthew Haig, who's one of the reporters, is very good.
Yeah.
Very good. What do you think about the way they cover it, though? And because we've written before when I was at D as an editor, and I still believe too much so that they treat it as an investigative beat only and not an explanatory beat. And what I mean by that is they look for stuff to say they're doing stuff wrong, and they don't always tell the community, here are the pockets of interesting, good things that are going on.
If I want to feel sorry for the people who are covering that beat, Tonnell, Hobbs, and others, and look at it from a strictly an inside the business perspective, I would say they've slashed staff. They piled duties on these people. Everybody's overworked. Everybody who's still working at the morning news has got too much to do. So having said that, what's the easiest, the down and dirty thing to do? Just sit there and wait for people to come to you with bad stories.
And that's one thing. But they don't even sit there. They did. Morning News filed over 100 Freedom of Information requests this school semester, this school year. With DISD. That's more than 2 a week that staff is having to go and get. That's just fishing expeditions.
Yeah.
That's just keep showing me stuff, and eventually I'll get a story about a scandal out of this.
Right.
Haig is a very good reporter. He's very good. What priority do his bosses put on which kind of stories, though? He's at the investigative reporter, National Investigative Reporter Conference last week or whenever it was. I would ask him. I would bet he didn't go to the Education Writers Conference because they're not going to pay for that, because that's not what's important. What's important is finding new tools to find out things that we can nail them on.
Yeah, and what I'm missing in it, I don't fault them or question their need to
or motives or anything. I'm just talking about it. It's a priority set for a lot of reasons as to what generates news.
And what I don't see there, and man, we get it at the Observer, and I've gotten it at other places where I've worked that were good papers, is the editor who says to me, "Okay, Schutze, you think you've got a great example of something that's going wrong here. Put it in context. How does this compare with the same situation everywhere else? For example, the big deal about 7 people have left Miles's cabinet. All these defections, one after another, the march of people ditching out on DISD.
Right. A lack of stability, which is the thing that scares morning news more than anything. Right.
I have this secret investigative tool. I don't like to talk about it too much, but it's something that we use in investigative journalism, and we were trained in how to use it. It's a thing called Google. You can go on there and you type in questions and it has answers. It's kind of like those little 8 balls they used to sell.
Right.
So I invested. Damn, it must have been the other day, 15 minutes, Googling school turnover, in higher education. I found this study in California that was amazing. It said that most principals' honeymoons last 1 year.
Right.
And then the forces of dysfunction start closing in on them, and their tenure after that, or not principals, I'm sorry, school superintendents.
Right.
So anyway, the point was turnover is just a fact of life in districts all over the country. So what I miss in the morning news's coverage is, okay, tell me about all the turnover, but give me the graph that says this compares in the following way to this same situation nationally, because I happen to know that you can use this Google thing, and it takes 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So I don't see that.
And it may be a sign of instability, and it may be a sign of him losing his grip. It may also be, as I've written, as you've written much more extensively, they're just sick of dealing with the board. It may also be that some of those folks just didn't know what they were getting into.
Hey, speaking of which, you mentioned on the show before, and you've written about Elizabeth Jones.
Yeah.
And the departure of now, I had a conversation with Miss Jones this week. She says she
loves me.
She says she's never talked to you.
That's true.
Oh, okay. And she said that she never said that. What? She never. She said that she denied that she had anything to do with that guy leaving.
Right.
As it happens, in the ensuing week, I learned from this guy Kevin Smelker who left. He said he was leaving. Oh man, did he ever
have a problem with?
Yeah, Elizabeth Jones.
Elizabeth Jones, right.
And so I went back and watched. What is the deal with that lady?
Right.
What is her questions? She says she beats up on him with all these jargony questions, all these business benchmark questions that she says she needs answers to. They say, Miles says, the other board members say, we can't understand you. We don't know what you're asking. give us a list of what you want. Then she says, well, I just want to get my head around it holistically.
Back to that word, the word of the day.
Yeah, the reason I hate that word, I said in a thing this week, in my experience, whenever anyone says that I'm just trying to get my head around things holistically, it means they want a divorce. But they don't want to tell you why.
You know, I know her reaction to that column I wrote, which said that it was saying, yes, not all is part of the problem, but let's not stop there. There's other board members were stepping into the breach. And making things hard and some of these administrators.
Man, did you ever turn out to be right?
And what happens, and one of the great things about finally sort of doing columns, as you've known for a long time, is people can come to you and say, not only can you not use my name, you pretty much can't even say I talked to someone at Raw, because I'm one of the only people who know this. And so if you even say you got this from a source, that's a problem. Right. And you can evaluate that, try to do what you can, and then say, I believe that person. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I don't. And I do believe that she doesn't see it that way. Yeah. And I know from her subsequent reaction,
doesn't get it. No,
doesn't believe at all. That thinks she's doing what she is doing what she thinks is best for students. She is doing exactly what she needs to be doing, and doesn't see the effect of the way in which she's holding these folks accountable. The way they see it.
The impression I have is that the staff has way more trouble with her than they do with Nuttall or Blackburn or Ranger.
And that's the sort of thing that. That if you're not yelling at a council meeting and you're not disrupting it, at a board meeting, well, then you're not going to be the lead in the story the next day in the paper. But it doesn't mean that behind the scenes, day to day, you're not doing things that are making it harder for Miles to accomplish what you've asked him to accomplish.
Yeah.
And you've got to be aware of that.
I just don't get her. We had a long conversation on the phone, and it did not get anywhere. She said that why would you spend all this money training principals if you can't prove that you've trained them to be successful? This is before they go be principals.
Right.
And I said, well, why would you spend money sending kids to high school? If you can't prove. Anyway, we didn't get anywhere with it, and that's a curious and difficult problem.
And I think part of the huge complex situation we've been talking about is that relationship between the board and the administration. What should that be? And I've posited that it should be like an advisory board if you want to act like a corporation, then you've got to be like a really good board of directors, and you've got to set policy, and you've got to hire the person that you believe can do that, and then support that person and stay out of the way.
And if you're a director, you got to specifically not go into the CEO and say, here's the name and phone number of my cousin who I would like you to use as a contractor on the parking lot.
Right. Without saying.
Right. Yeah. We need to not do that. Well, we draw to a close here. Another great week on Get Off My Lawn. Eric, if the Chinese took over tomorrow, right, and they put a gun to your head, and they said, "You tell us, stick with this Miles guy or get rid of him." What would what?
I would stick with him.
You would,
because I think that he's learned the biggest lesson that he's had to learn, which is how to navigate the political waters of Dallas. And if he hasn't, we'll know real fast.
Yeah, I agree, and I hate sticking with people. I would much rather. It goes against all my better instincts, but ditching out on him now, man.
Well, it's but that would be 9 and 20 years or whatever it is. It's you can't just keep doing the same thing over and waiting for a different result, right? That's insanity.
No, and I'm afraid people will give up on public education at some point if we can't fix it. Jim Schutze, Eric Celeste. Get Off My Lawn, radio's darkest hour. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you here next week at 10 a.m. Saturday. Bye-bye.
KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.